Hello everyone and welcome to today's webinar on Schoology tests and quizzes. This webinar is part of a series of FCPS Schoology webinars where we've been highlighting different material types and features within Schoology. My name is Kyle Eckert and I'm one of the trainers for FCPS when it comes to Schoology. In today's session we're going to take a look at the test quiz type of material and the different question types and features you get within that type of material. If you're looking for the assessments, that will be highlighted in a different episode. Today we are exclusively looking at the test quiz type of material. So let's go ahead and jump into today's session and what we're going to look at. As you can see from my screen here, I'm already in Schoology and within my course. So I'm going to go to Add Materials, Add Test Quiz, since that is what we're looking at here today. Of course, you have to give your test or quiz a name. So for today, we'll call it the webinar example. You can assign it a due date. Just like all types of materials within Schoology, you don't have to assign it a due date, but if you'd like it to be due at a certain time, you can. So we'll go ahead here and we'll say December 27th. Yes, I realize that school is out on December 27th, but it's still the date I've picked. Of course, you can assign it a total points. And you also have to throw it into a grading category. Now, keep in mind that while this piece of material is called test quiz, you don't have to exclusively use it as a test or a quiz. You can use these question types to build just a regular assignment and then put it in the homework or classwork grading category. But for today, we'll throw it in benchmark. Going to leave the grading period as summer-fall 2019. And going to also leave the grading scale as numeric. Looking at the options along the bottom here, I'm not going to individually assign. I want this to be published to my students right away. I'm going to leave grading statistics disabled. And I'm also going to leave comments enabled. That way my students can give me feedback on this test or quiz. I know in most cases you wouldn't do this, but I'm going to leave it on as a default here just so I can show you something a little later. This option here gives you the ability to copy this test quiz over to other courses, but of course here it's telling me it can't do that because it doesn't have any questions set to it just yet. Once we're ready to get going, we'll click Create. Alright, here we are, and you can see that there's 5 tabs across the top here. You've got your questions where I'm going to add the questions, settings where I'll adjust the different settings for this test or quiz. I can preview it once I'm done, and then once my students have taken this test quiz, I can come back here and check results and either grade them by question or grade them individually as each student took it. And then this is where comments will show up if any students have made comments. I'm going to jump right in to the different question types, and then we'll review the remaining tabs at the end. So, to add your first question or to add any question, go ahead and click on Add Question. You'll see the different types of question types listed here. We're going to go in order down here. So the first question type is a true-false type question. Very simple. There's not much to this one. You've got a text box here in the middle where you can type out your question. So I'm going to pull my question over, put it in the description area. So we're looking at true or false. lms.fcps.org is the correct link to use for accessing Schoology from home for FCPS teachers. Of course, that answer is true. So when I come down here at the bottom and I say text for true, if I wanted to have this be a yes, no, I could actually adjust this to say yes or no here. But I'm going to leave it true, false for today. The correct answer is true. So we're going to leave this as true. Now, if I wanted to change this up and the correct answer was false, but I needed to require a correction, I could. So I would say correct answer is false, require a correction, and then it opens up a text box for the student to tell me what the correct answer should have been. So it's just one extra option to the test quiz question type, or the true-false question type, excuse me. I will switch that back to true and unchecked require a correction if false, since that doesn't apply to this question. You can, of course, have extra options here. You can check it to make it's a subjective question. So this is not automatically graded, meaning that you as the teacher have to come back in and mark it right or wrong. Typically, if it's just true false, it's going to read what you've said is true and automatically grade for you. But if it's a subjective question, you can come back in as the teacher and grade it afterwards. You can also put a time limit on the question by checking this box right here. So you can see timed questions require that an answer be submitted before the displayed timer reaches 0. So if I wanted to make this a timed question, I could check this box and I could say the students have 1 minute to answer this question. But for today, I'm going to leave that turned off. You can also change the value of this individual question. So you can see here, questions with a point value of 0 are not counted for or against the final score. All decimals be rounded to the nearest integer. So if you wanted to have a 10-point quiz, but you wanted to make each question worth 2, or maybe some are worth 2, some are worth 1, some are worth 3, adding up to your final total, you can do that. As with most things in Schoology, you can align learning objectives here. I'm going to go ahead and click Create, and I've created my first question. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. Moving on to the second question type. Once again, I'm just going to click Add Question, and then I get my drop down of the different types of question types. And this time I'm going to do a multiple choice. The interface looks more or less the same here. I've got my text box at the top where I can add the question or the description that I want my students to do, or what I'd like them to do. And you'll see that the rich text editor is here, so if I wanted to bold certain words or align this differently or do something a little more than what I'm doing here today, that is all available to you. You'll also notice that the microphone button is here as well. So if you wanted to give audio or video audio instructions to your students, that is available to you. So the question I'm asking here is, what color is the star in the FCPS logo? And I've got to come down to my different choices and type them out. So I'm going to say blue. Is the star blue? Is the star green? Is it yellow or red? I can add or remove question choices here at the bottom. So if I wanted a fifth question or a fifth answer, I could add this here. Or if I only wanted to use 2, I can just click Remove Blanks. I need to make sure that I check the box for the correct answer. The correct answer in this case is yellow. So I'm clicking correct answer is yellow. And then once again, very similar to true false, you have extra options here at the bottom. You can randomize your choices, which means not every student is going to get these choices in this order that I've typed them out. You can do partial credit. And once again, you can make this a timed question. You can see here, if there are multiple answers for this question, you can give students partial credit for each answer they've gotten right. So if the question had more than one correct answer, I would just check more than one box over here on the right. And then if a student didn't check or didn't get all of them correct, they could get partial credit. Once again, you can make certain questions worth more points, but we're not going to do that here. Go ahead and create this question. Moving on here, we're going to add our next question. Once again, add question, get the drop down. This one's going to be an ordering question. It's going to look a lot like multiple choice. So move through here. What I'm going to do for this one, and I was going to ask my students to put the months of the year in order. So we're going to look at January, February. Can you guess what's coming next? It's March and April. Well done. Now, for this one, just the same with multiple choice questions. You can add or remove blanks here. So if you needed more than 4, you could. You could do partial credit, just like multiple choice, and that would say if they had some of these in order, but not all of them. And then once you type these out, if you need to rearrange the order, just click and drag. So do that. We're going to make sure that everything is in order the way we want it. There we go. All of this is the same as before. Create question. Flying through these. Let's go ahead and move on to something that is a little different, and that is the short answer essay question. We say this one's a little different because it's going to give students a full text box to answer us when they go to take this test quiz. So what we're going to do here in the description, we're going to ask our students to read a little paragraph and then answer some questions about it. So read the following excerpt and write about the first time you experienced something that you instantly fell in love with. So in our little paragraph here, we have about riding a bike for the first time and how that felt. So we're going to ask our students to read this and then reflect on it and tell us about something that they've experienced in their life. When the students get their text box, you have options on how it's presented to them. You can put a character limit on it if you'd like. You can also allow this rich text answer for the students, which would give them these options up here, the same as you have. You can allow a video or audio answers, so you give them the ability to record themselves using the camera on their Chromebook or other device. And once again, you can time the question. You can see here with this option we have printing. You can make it a short answer or an essay, and you'll see right here in this little notice, this really just determines the amount of space that the student has when typing out their answers. Essay obviously is a little bigger, but for this one, we'll go ahead and leave it as a short answer. You can see we can assign a rubric to this if we like, since it is a text-styled answer. We'll go ahead and click Create Question, since that is the end of those options. We'll go ahead and preview this once we're done, so you guys can see what it looks like on the student side and that sort of thing. The next type of question type is a fill in the blank. So we've got fill in the blank here, add question, fill in the blank. Now, for this one, what you need to do is type out the sentence that you would like the students to fill in the blanks for. But when it comes to the blank areas, you'll see that you only need to use one underscore right here. So for this one, we're going to go a little old school. We're going to do a classic commercial song for the Big Mac. So if anyone remembers the Big Mac song, it is, so I say Big Mac. It was 2 all something patties, special sauce, lettuce, something, pickles, something, on a something seed bun. Nice. Hopefully you all remember this song. Now, as we come down here for the different answers, you'll see as I was making those underscores in the description area, we were getting more blank spaces down here at the bottom. So blank 1 is going to go in this area right here. And the answer for that, of course, is 2 all beef patties. You can add an answer if you want to adjust for different spellings or things like that. You could do that, or if you are allowing multiple answers for one fill in the blank, this would work. We're going to remove that though, since I want the answer to be beef, because that is the correct answer. For blank 2, after 2 all beef patties, special sauce, lettuce, cheese, pickles, onions on a sesame seed bun. There you go. Now, just like all the question types before that had this, you can allow partial credit. If the student gets some of these blanks right, but not all of them, you can allow for special credit. You can also create a word bank for them to pull from. So in this case, if I wanted a word bank, I could give some suggestions like, is it beef? Is it hamburger? Is it Swiss cheese? Different options here that they can choose from a word bank. You can make it case sensitive. So once again, if the student doesn't capitalize the B in beef, they get it wrong. For this, we're going to let it slide. We're not going to make it case sensitive. And as always, we have a timed question, and you can make this point worth more, or worth this question worth more. Fairly straightforward. What you do need to remember when you're doing this is you get 1 underscore per word that you would like here. It's very tempting to go underscore, 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 as if that's the amount of space that the student needs to see. But when you do that, you can see I did 3 underscores there. It added 3 blank spaces. So it's 1 underscore per word or per blank that you want there. The space and the length of the underscore doesn't matter. It's 1 per word. We'll go ahead and create that question. Now, before we do the last question type, which is matching, what we're going to do here is look at the bottom 2 options, which is a page break and a text break. What you do here if you add a page break is when this quiz is presented to your students, if everything is all on one page, or everything will be all on one page unless you add these page breaks. So what you can do is add a page break, and then anything that comes after this, the student will have to click next to go to the next page to see the next question. If not, like I said, all of these questions will be listed in one long line. So there's different formatting options that you have available to you. And when it comes to the text option here, instead of having a page break, you just want a page with just text for them to read. You can do that as well. So looking at my short answer essay question from earlier, if I didn't want to leave this paragraph in the question itself, what I could have done you get what I'm saying. But we'll move on here to the last question type, which is matching. We're going to have some fun again with this one. For the matching, for this, my example question, I'm going to ask my students to match the superhero to their costume suit color. So the question is Batman, and what color is Batman's suit? It is, of course, black. Unless, of course, you're reading something from the Silver Age and then it's blue, but we're not going to get into that debate today. My next one is Iron Man, and what color is Iron Man's suit? It is red. And lastly, Superman. Superman's suit is blue. And you can see I only had 3 options here, but it defaults to 4. I'm just going to click Remove Blanks, and it removes that 4th blank. You can give some filler words, and what that does for the student is they'll see these options here listed to the left, and then when the answer options are listed to the right, you could have 6 answer options listed off to the right, but they only need to pick 3 of them. So just for that, just to see it, we'll throw orange in there, just so we can see what that looks like on the back end. Once again, we can allow partial credit if they get some of these right. You can make it a subjective question if you want to come back and grade it. If not, Schoology automatically grades it for you. There's timed question, and adding points and learning objectives like all of the other question types. Go ahead and create this question. Nice. So our quiz is created, and we'll go ahead and go to preview and see what it looks like. So I'm going to click preview, start new attempt, and you'll see here I should have 5 questions on that first page, and then I inserted the page break, and then there'll be a 6th question on the back end. So you'll see how that works. But when a student goes to take this quiz, this is what it'll look like. We've got question 1, it's worth 1 point, true, false. They got to pick true or false. Question 2, they've got some choices. Pick their choices. For question 3, put the months of the year in order. You can see that it jumbled these up. That way the student actually has to move them around to put them in the right order. Question 4 was my short answer essay one. So asking them to read the paragraph and then use this space here to respond. I did not check allowing them to use the rich text editor, which is why they don't see the bold, italicized, and alignment features here. But if I had checked that box, that would be listed right up top. Moving on to my fill in the blanks, you can see how it works here. It extended out the blanks for me, even though when I created the question it was just one little underscore. So I've got my song playing here, and they just fill in the blanks just like that. I inserted that page break, so the student has to click next page to get to the final question. And there, this one is the matching. You can see orange, I threw in the extra orange option, so it's listed up top. You'll see how students would fill in the letter, and it would move to the appropriate column. They'll even cross over, if it crosses over. And then when they're done, they click submit. So that is what your questions look like. We're going to go back to, we're going to leave it, not going to make any changes to it. We'll go back to our questions here. Now say when you're building this, you have a question bank ready for you or prepared for you by the curriculum department. You can actually pull in from a question bank. So if I go to add question from question bank, it's going to ask me, do I want to individually select the questions from the question banks that I want to use on this quiz, or do I just want to pick the question bank and then it's going to pick a random set of 5 or 10, however many I pick, from that question bank. So say I have a question bank that has 30 questions in it, and I want to make a quiz of 10 questions. What I can do here, I'm going to say random questions, and then I have to find my question bank. Luckily for me, it's right here on my home screen. So I'm going to check this box. I'm going to select this question bank, and here it's going to ask me how many questions do I want to pull over. There are 9 questions in that question bank, and I want to pull over 5 of them, and I want each question to be worth 2 points. Add questions, and then I'll add them down here at the bottom. Now, each student, when they go to take this, because I said a random question set, each student's going to get a random set of questions from that bank. So that's what that means. If I wanted to pick the specific questions I want, when I do question banks, I just hit individual questions, pick my question bank, and there you'll see the different questions I have available, and I just check the ones I want. Then I add those questions, and I'll throw them down there at the bottom. Not much to it. As far as the options button here, what I can do is I can add questions to that bank. So say I've designed this quiz and I really like this set of 15 questions here that I've added. I can say I want to add questions to the bank. So it's saying which set of these questions do you want to add? And then I would follow that procedure to add them to that bank. The other option I have here is to reorder my questions. So say I didn't want this true false to be first, I wanted it to be third. I just move it down, and there it is. Nothing too crazy going on here. It's very straightforward. Test quiz is very simple. There's not too many question types. It makes it very easy on the teacher to create their test quizzes and to reuse them. And as I said earlier, you don't have to exclusively use this as a test quiz grading category. You can build this out and then use it for homework or classwork, etc. So we have our comments. Like I said, that's where they would show up. Once a student takes this quiz, the results would show up here. I'll preview that before we close out here today. You already saw a preview on what it looks like on the student side, so the only tab that we haven't reviewed is this settings area. And what this is, and what you can do here, is you can do leading instructions to the quiz itself. So that's what this instructions text box area is for. So before you even start the quiz, I want you to read this, And so you get a feel for what is coming and what types of questions are coming. And this would really play into if you were going to use this for a homework assignment and things like that. You also see here you can enable and disable submissions. You can even do that on a specific time frame. So by default, you'll create this test quiz and submissions will be disabled. So students will not be able to actually start the test quiz and submit things back to you. So what you need to do here is come in and make sure that you enable the quiz. You can set an overall time limit for the quiz itself. So if I wanted to set a 15-minute time limit, I could. You can do an attempt limit, so allow students to take it more than once. If, say, they didn't do so hot the first time and you wanted to allow them to take it a second or third time, or unlimited, you could do that as well. I think the unlimited screen, the unlimited option was outside of the webinar screen here, so I went ahead and clicked it. And then once you select the number of times that they're allowed to take it, you can see how it's graded. Do you want it to be graded by the highest score, the last score, or an average of all of the different times they've taken it? Say you wanted to randomize the order so each student gets your questions in a different order, you can. You can use page breaks. Now what this does is I individually manually set my page breaks for this test quiz. If I wanted each question to be on its own page, I'll go ahead here and say one question per page as far as the page breaks. And that's what that does. You can change the language keyboard. You can allow students to review or change their answers before submitting. So it gives them a little notice saying, hey, do you want to go back and review your answers for each question before submitting? And resumable just means if a student stops the quiz in the middle of it, can they come back in and resume it? Lastly here you have view submissions, which you can see says allow students to view the results of their test quiz as soon as it's done, meaning what they got right and what they got wrong. And you have an extra option here, yes, with correct answers. You also can hide the point value if you didn't want them to be able to see the point value of each question. The last piece here are printing options, very similar to our short answer essay area where how much space are we leaving them for that respond type question. Once you're done, go ahead and click Save Changes. And for your students, it'll be ready to go right there on your materials page within your course. And as long as you have enabled submissions, it'll be ready to go. Now I'm going to pop over to my other superheroes example to look at the results. And I've got some coworkers here and some test accounts that have taken this quiz for me. But you can see here, once students have started to take the quiz and you get results back, this results tab fills up with the student that's taken it, how many times they've taken it, when they did it, and their score. And of course I can change this view to view by student or view by question on how it may be easier to grade everyone's question one first before, or it might be easier to grade by student. So it's really up to you and your grading style. But once again, this is fairly straightforward. Test quiz, not much to it. It's very straightforward, pretty simple. They like to make it user-friendly. So if you have any questions, of course, feel free to contact us at schoology.help@fcps.org. Hopefully you found something useful here today in this webinar, and we hope to see you in our future webinars and at our future trainings. Thank you.